it's a really active subject. There's a lot of work we do, and monasteries do. Probably an old question as well. What ways can Paul recommend that you keep inclining the mind to practice while working? Because I find that you still get a lot of distraction, wandering, that kind of thing.
And Paul says to remember Luang Por Buddhadasa's teaching that when we work and practice as we're working, the idea is to practice with a mind free from attachment, from upadana, the mind that's empty of attachment, and keep bringing up that reflection. Luang Por says when he works, he doesn't have any worries or concerns in his mind. He knows he's working, he's doing something that's just for the general good, and he keeps doing the work and lets go of any worries, concerns, agitation in the mind about the work or the task he might be doing. That's your aim, is to be able to do that. When you do jobs around, maybe what you're doing, it's not even necessarily going to last that long. Even if you build something or you do something of use, but that's just a reflection. It's not that you don't do it. You do it, but you reflect. This might not last forever, and it depends on your skills. Some people are more skilled in the way they do jobs, and that will be an individual thing. But you want to keep your mind free from too much worry or agitation, restlessness about the work or whatever. And then he said, what are you saying? It was a very good little bit of teaching, the last bit.
Or the comparison of travelling, to travel somewhere.
He just said, or you could compare it with when you're travelling as well, right? If you're travelling and you have a lot of desire to get to where you want, then the distance you're travelling starts to seem long, and you kind of get frustrated and impatient because it's taking too long. Whereas if you empty your mind of that kind of desire, then even if it's a long distance, you just feel comfortable and you just go along travelling. So in the end, it's a matter of how much desire is in your mind, how much wanting. Says as practitioners, then we should be concentrating and practicing mindfulness of our posture, which will obviously change throughout the day. Sometimes we change just to remove painful feelings, but we'll be changing all through the day. And so work is just another posture. And it doesn't matter what kind of work you're doing, whether it's heavy work or just light work, just sitting at a desk writing or whatever activity, you can bring that in as a focus of posture. And again, you want to keep your mind relaxed and easy as you're doing that, without a lot of worry or desire or attachment about what you're doing. You just do it as another posture, as another focus of your mindfulness. Paul says in the life of a monk there's many different activities that we would call work. Some of them are more physical and maybe to do with our physical needs, material needs like building or maintenance or arrangement of the monastery around our physical needs. And it might be more coarser work, there's labour and there's movement and stuff. But then there's many other kinds of work we do as monks, and even teaching Dhamma is a kind of work which one still has to bring in mindfulness and wisdom to contemplate the right way. There's an appropriate way of doing it. There's what we call the factors of one who is teaching Dhamma, the proper factors that should be there in the mind. And there should be basically the pure intention to just teach people to further their understanding of the Dhamma, to bring them to right view, right understanding. One shouldn't be doing it for gains, to impress people so they get gains, or one shouldn't be doing it for praise. And as one teaches Dhamma, one shouldn't be doing it to put others down, to lift oneself up or show off one's knowledge or whatever, one's attainments, to put others down. There's various factors that one has to consider when teaching, and that's a form of work. One has to use one's mindfulness, one's wisdom to consider how to do that well, just like any other job one would be doing. Luang Por started just saying another kind of work, typical kind of work of a monk is, say, sewing robes. So one has to use mindfulness and various qualities to do that well. Because in his young days, staying with Ajahn Chah, a lot of monks would come, people come to ordain with Ajahn Chah, and Ajahn Chah would give the monks many different tasks, different jobs to do, running the monastery and doing things. And sometimes he could give Ajahn Liem 40 or 50 sets of robes, 3 robes to sew, which means just a full-time sewing for maybe a period of weeks. And he said, you just start in the morning. If you let your mind go into an unwholesome mood, then obviously you're going to start complaining, you'll be irritated, frustrated doing it, and a lot of dukkha. But if you go in with the attitude, seeing that, this is something that's useful for the community, it's wholesome, and you just do it without any desire in your mind, any attachment, and you just do it, and you start, you do it as much as you can for a day. You don't set yourself extreme targets or anything. You just do it until you're tired. Okay, I've done enough for today, I'll do some more tomorrow. You just do it in a continuously mindful way without any desire or attachment in the mind, and you can even do a large job like that very well, very peacefully. And then he went on to say, when he was encouraging people today in his talk to think of ways that are how we can live in society, or particular societies, whether it's family, work or monasteries, in a peaceful, harmonious way. He's giving them advice on the qualities needed for that. He's saying, because, as he can observe over time in Thailand and probably elsewhere, people are more and more attached to material, physical comfort, to the point where they become very weak character-wise and losing a lot of Dhamma. So when you become attached to material comfort, success, you just want everything your own way then. The more you do attach, the more you want things your own way. You want to follow your own wishes, get them gratified, satisfied all the time. So you have less Dhamma, you have less patience, less resistance to dukkha. And so it leads to all kinds of problems in society. And he said, if you ask people, they say, everything's fine, it's very smooth, because they think having the material wealth and success makes everything smooth. But if you look deeper, then it perhaps isn't so smooth. And he's just saying, when he talks, his aim is to help people to have more metta, more harmony, more good qualities come up. He doesn't speak to just criticize people. It's another point about when you're teaching Dhamma, you don't just speak critically, say, this is bad, that's wrong, because people probably can't take that, and it won't lead them to reflect on things. So he has to just try and give them advice and good reasoning, and then they can think it through for themselves, see for themselves. The main qualities we need when we're working are a sense of metta and doing something which is beneficial for others, and in a sense of being able to self-sacrifice, give up one's preferences, one's time, one's energy for others, for the general good. In the early days at Wat Pah Pong, when people used to come to offer themselves to train with Luang Por Chah, he generally was very kind and accepted almost everybody, very rarely turned anyone away. But the way he trained people is, first of all, he just let them stay in the monastery to see whether they could stay there, while let them become familiar with the way of practice. Wouldn't ordain them straight away, just let them stay there, see can they stay, and then gradually start to teach them. But the way he taught wasn't just to teach them to depend on him as a teacher. He taught them how to be responsible for themselves, how to have be able to help themselves. That was his aim and his style. So, for instance, with the cutting and sewing of robes before ordination, he might prepare the cloth, help them mark it out, cut it, but then tell them to go away and sew it themselves. And he would give teachings on many aspects of the life, teaching them to be mindful in all the postures, how to wear the robes mindfully, how to use the bowl mindfully, the different aspects of our lives, the external aspects. He would teach them this mindfulness, but then it's up to them to go away and practice. That was what he was always encouraging people to do, so that they become self-reliant, self-responsible for themselves, and have a sense of responsibility, personal responsibility. And every aspect of the monastic life became a practice, so it's not like the monks were just there in the forest doing nothing, just meditating, doing nothing. You have to do things. There has to be activity in a monastery. Even the most simple thing like cleaning areas, the public areas, the kitchen, or particularly the toilets, is a practice, and you had to do it. In the early days of what we're calling, there's just 2 cubicles for lay people, and they were built out of scraps, rubbish scraps of old bits of metal and stuff. And the people who came in the early days, they weren't trained. They're just very simple villagers who had very little hygiene or training. So the toilets in those days were very, very dirty, smelly, unpleasant places, but the monks were always rostered to go and clean the toilets. And this is a very good way of losing your sense of self, your pride, your attachment. You have to go and clean up the slop of other people. But if you make it into a practice, what it is, you're contemplating. People eat food and they have to shit it out. This is the truth. This is truth of nature. So as you're cleaning like that, you contemplate, and you can get a lot of wisdom from it. And these kind of jobs, where you do jobs serving the community, what they're doing is they're helping to erode away your sense of self, your attachment, your pride. You could compare it to, say, looking after kids in a daycare centre. If you have to if you were in a kindergarten or a daycare centre, the people bring their kids to you, and they're kids, so little kids, so they shit, they urinate, they make mess with their food everywhere, but you expect that. They wouldn't be any other way, and you have no choice but to run after them, cleaning them up all the time. That's the way of a daycare centre. But as time goes on, they gradually grow up, they gradually learn to do these things for themselves. It's not like a hopeless task. And similarly in the monastery, the more people train, the more they give up to the training, then gradually things get better, they improve. But while you're doing that, say you're going to clean up the kitchen or the toilets after lay people, you might well have a reaction come up. I don't like this, or this is foul, this is horrible, the mess of spilt food or excrement or something. But that is exposing your own attachments, your own mind for you to see. So it's actually very good practice. You're getting what we call the sense of revulsion, patigula, that which is patigula, which is repulsive, like the parts of the body, the stuff that comes out, urine, excrement, waste of food and stuff. That's Dhamma, you're getting that reflection. We don't like it, but that's actually the way we learn about things and how to let go. When you talk about toilets, the Buddha actually gave us rules about how in a monastery you have to designate places of a toilet, and we've got rules. It has to be kept clean and so on. You go to India, say, if you ever travel on pilgrimage to there, then it gives you a different perspective where the whole countryside becomes one open toilet. People go everywhere in the fields, all over the place. You might travel there, that might give you a sense of repulsion when you see that, or you come across a stool in the field or whatever. But that's actually giving you a reflection on asubha, on the unattractive side of this physical form. When I was in India, I went to Gailak mountain, where the Buddha gave the teaching of the Satipatthana Sutta. That's in the area, at those days they called it the Kuru area, and it's now the area of New Delhi. It belongs to the government now. When you walk around that hill, you have to be careful because there's excrement all over the place. You might, as you're walking, be revolted by that. You meet a feces on the ground. But then you have to reflect, well, this is the culture there, it's still developing. In the old days, when they were fighting the British for independence, they even used this to their advantage. They used excrement to revolt the British in different ways, using psychological warfare. That mountain where he gave the Satipatthana Sutta, at that sutta he was teaching the truth about nature, about reality. The mountain itself is just a small hill with rocks, and there's one of the Emperor Asoka's pillars there to mark the place, its importance. And that teaching he gave is obviously a very powerful, very profound teaching for us. It's a way of practice. The first foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of the body. You're contemplating and focusing your concentration on the body to see, develop the perception of the unclean, unattractive side of the body, to let go of the normal attachment and the infatuation we have with the body, and also importantly to help us let go of our sense of self or conceit, mana. The Buddha talked about the 9 kinds of conceit, where we compare with others, we're better than them, we're the same, we're worse, and so on. And this contemplation of the body directly helps to erode away that sense of conceit or self, and the normal sense of comparing with others, trying to be equal with others, or getting caught into perceptions of equality, inequality, and so on. That's eroded away by this. Because it's exposing the true nature of this physical form. It's something unattractive, it's not self, it's not to be attached to. Even though we have to look after this body, feed it, look after it, it is something in its essence that is unclean and not to be attached to. Reflecting like this also reduces our selfishness, our basic selfishness and self-cherishing nature. Another aspect of this contemplation of the body is when we reflect on alms food. When it's offered, maybe we start to get caught into whether we like it or we don't like it. But all food and drink that we consume, we have to consider, even though we tend to go for the deliciousness of the taste and compare tastes and look to find it to make it more tasty, more delicious, when it goes down into the body, mixed with the digestive juices, then that's all lost. It becomes something very unattractive, very unappealing. So we don't eat for taste. That's that contemplation. We don't eat for pleasure, the pleasure of the food. We don't eat to make our bodies look attractive or impressive, and so on. This is all reflecting on the use of food in the proper way, and it's part of the foundation of mindfulness of the body, which the Buddha taught at that place, Gailak Mountain.